The average Canadian sentiment on immigration is shifting due to the large number of people coming into the country in the midst of a housing crisis. And now politicians are struggling on how to come online to this new point of view. Now, before we get into this segment, Reclaiming Canada Conference is only just over a week away. Looking forward to this. I'll be one of the guest speakers there at the conference. Now, it's come under attack a little bit recently. Far lefties trying to shut the conference down on the grounds that it's transphobic. It has nothing to do with trans or LGBT or any of this stuff. The conference, incidentally and ironically, is about misinformation in media, and that's kind of ironic. It's funny that that's the angle that they're trying to do. Lots of great speakers lined up for this. Tickets, some tickets are sold out and some are still available, but what is still available is the online ticket. So you can watch this from the comfort of your own home. Get your virtual access tickets today, and hopefully maybe there's still a little discount on that. But anyway, the link will be in the description down below. Check it out. You can watch that from the comfort of your own home, whether it's in Canada or anywhere else in the world. That's the beauty of the internet. Go check it out. Link, again, is in the description down below. Now, why don't we get into this story? The focus is shifting. People are now saying that they're concerned about immigration, ones that were happy to be bringing many new voters in before, but things are shifting because, well, votes are shifting. Here's David Eby's response to the amount of immigration and the fact that people are leaving British Columbia in droves.
When asked about the poll Monday, Premier David Eby pointed his frustration towards Ottawa, saying BC is adding 10,000 additional people every 37 days, putting pressure on the housing stock. And while Quebec has received financial support from the federal government to deal with immigration, BC has received nothing.
They've offered us nothing. Zero.
Hold on, 10,000 every 37 days just in the province of British Columbia. If you don't think that that's a problem, I don't know what you think would be a problem. This is crazy.
$0. With 10,000 people coming to our province every 37 days, we have right now refugees and homeless shelters.
The Premier waiting now for Ottawa to announce BC's money, while young British Columbians wait for some hope they can afford to stay here.
Yeah, well, that's not even remotely possible, especially in Vancouver proper. It is very difficult. More than 1 in 3 British Columbians considering leaving due to how high housing costs. And we've seen also the emigration numbers, emigration being the opposite of immigration, people, Canadians, leaving the country due to immigration, housing costs, and even some of the measures that the federal government are doing, namely the capital gains tax. We're seeing a lot of professionals, a lot of doctors leaving because of that, and that's never good. Now, the Canadian real estate market, we saw the interest rates come down by 25 basis points. So it went from 5% to 4.75%. And of course, realtors think that this is going to be some sort of boon. It is not, according to Better Dwelling and their experts there. Canadian real estate markets won't see a big boost from the rate cut. I don't think I tend to agree with them, but let's see what some of them are saying out online. This one I had to share on Twitter because it's just crazy to me. Canadian realtors are scum, I said. This one celebrating the thought that home prices will soar because of unfettered immigration, completely detached from the dystopian reality they've helped to create. So this is Nancy Ho, a real estate agent in Vancouver or in the British Columbia area, I believe, saying CMHC predicts Canadian home prices will soar to new highs by 2026 thanks to declining mortgage rates and strong population growth. See, this is how you change the wording of things. Population growth. We're not going to have natural population growth. We don't have lots of people making babies. No, that's not what's happening in Canada. Actually, population is on decline in Canada. The population growth we're seeing is the unfettered immigration. And they think that this is going to be, get ready for a dynamic real estate landscape. Let's start flipping houses again and making things more and more uncomfortable for renters and people who just want to buy their first home. It's the way things have been going lately. Now, there's arguments all over X today. This is the greatest place to go have these conversations because it is the public town square. It is where people's opinions are able to be heard, and there is clash. And I really like it because on most other platforms you'll only hear one point of view. I like to hear all of this. David Lionheart saying, "Why are far right parties, many of which traffic in racism, violent rhetoric, and authoritarianism surging in so much of the West? Partly because the mainstream parties have dismissed public opinion on major issues, the enormous rise of immigration." And I tend to agree. I don't agree with the fact that these far right parties, or these parties, are far right at all in some cases, which is a misnomer and how people paint them. And they're not trafficking in racism, but they are being ignored. The average person is being ignored. And when they talk about immigration, it's often brought in as something that's racist. We heard about this when Trump was trying to run for office back in 2016. If you bring up immigration at all, it's a racist thing. Now he goes on, he continues and says a bunch of stuff. He says voters in turn have drifted to parties on the extreme right. Again, these parties traffic in racism and authoritarianism. To some voters, though, the parties are also the only part of the political system willing to listen to public opinion in the modern immigration boom. That's correct. They are the only ones. Richard on X saying racism is literally all there is to anti-immigration. I'm not saying it's always wrong, but the motives are always, these people are different, and we don't want them here. To accept immigration restrictionism and not to want racism in political terms is impossible. I can't agree with this sentiment. I largely think that when you have such large numbers of people coming in, that is what breeds particular types of prejudices that come in. You know, we see a lot of Indians coming to Canada, and in return, you see a lot of anti-Indian sentiment, and it extends to the people who have been here for generations. And I think that's completely unfair to the people who have been here for generations. And yes, there are a lot of people who have come here under the policies of Trudeau and ought not to stay, and it's unfortunate for them because you have to see them as victims in this as well, being duped into coming to a country that can't house them. That's a real problem. Chris Brunette also adding to this thread, saying countries like Canada plus UK are in the middle of the worst housing and healthcare shortages in their history. This is the primary reason why people are increasingly anti-immigration, and it has nothing to do with racism, just common sense. That I tend to agree with, but there is a danger of racism brewing out of this anti-immigration sentiment, and this is something to watch out for, absolutely. So there is no one way or the other. There is a lot of gray area, and it's a big, messy world that we live in, so let's have a look at it. But of course, Justin Trudeau is very concerned with the fact that right-wing parties are taking a hold across the Western world. And this is happening in Europe as well, as we see Macron losing power in France after a snap election that he thought he was going to trample over.
We have seen around the world a rise of populist right-wing forces in just about every democracy that we've seen. And it is of concern to see political parties choosing to instrumentalize anger, fear, division, anxiety.
Where does this come from? Where does this kind of sentiment come from? Well, it's called projection. Projection is absolutely what's going on here, because here's a perfect example of this. Here's Cat Canada pointing out Justin Trudeau's way of running politics and talking about how he actually runs politics. Now, people are genuinely concerned about immigration, and this is why people are leaning towards the parties that are talking about immigration as being maybe a net negative thing, especially in such large numbers. But here's Justin Trudeau talking about his way of running politics.
Attack politics, divisive politics, negative, stirring up of hate and fear and differences. The dirty secret is they work. Even back in 2015, they work to get you elected.
Even back in
You can
2015.
do that. You can mobilize and get elected. It's just what we're seeing is that once you've used those methods to get elected, it becomes incredibly hard to govern responsibly for all citizens in bringing people together and getting big things done. Because once you start, churning up anger, it just feeds on itself. And if you're not continually throwing fresh raw meat at it,
Right.
It will get away from you entirely.
Yeah, like raw meat, like, I don't know, unvaccinated people, throwing them to the vitriolic crowds that want to, erase them from society, that kind of thing. Yeah, that's right. He did that. He is the kind of politician that does this stuff. And now he's, with projection, saying this about others that are actually talking about the sentiments that Canadians are concerned about. And this is really about unfettered immigration. Immigration is not a bad thing. Immigration is a good thing in the whole scheme of things. And Canada's always had a really good immigration policy up until 2015. Yeah, that's right. What happened then? Well, this guy was elected, and that is a large part of this. And Spencer Fernando breaks this down perfectly in this speech on Twitter.
Liberal Immigration Minister Mark Miller said he's quite tired of the fact that people are always blaming immigrants for absolutely everything. Miller added that, in his view, the increase in mortgage prices has nothing to do with immigrants. As always, Miller is being dishonest. There was very little anger towards the immigration system in Canada before the Liberals wrecked it. It was the Liberals who decided to ramp up immigration to insane levels. It was the Liberals who decided to impose mass immigration on Canada. That's what Canadians are angry about. Canadians are rightfully blaming the Liberal government for this, because immigration is controlled by the federal government. Meanwhile, Miller is the one who's trying to deflect blame onto immigrants by falsely casting criticism of Liberal immigration policy as criticism of individual immigrants. Miller's also wrong when he says increased housing prices have nothing to do with surging immigration. The Liberals keep pushing up demand for housing by flooding the country with people. Housing supply can't keep up, so housing gets less affordable. Miller can try all he wants to shift blame and evade reality, but Canadians know that Liberal politicians like Mark Miller are the ones responsible for ruining Canada's immigration system, wrecking our economy, and crushing our standard of living.
That's absolutely correct. It's the Liberals that are responsible for this, and the Liberals are going to have to rein in on this one, and it's going to rein in at the polls, and that's likely going to be the situation. So yes, there is a rise in right-wing sentiment. Now, it's crazy because we're talking about right-wing sentiment, or they're talking about right-wing sentiment, but we're talking realistically about people getting away from these radical left ideological positions. The idea that we can just flood countries with mass amounts of people, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And yeah, there's a lot of people, or a lot of political parties, that are now listening to the average person who's saying, enough is enough. We got to stop this, and we got to reel it in, and we won't have a recovery until that happens. Anyway, leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think. And don't forget to check out the We Unify Reclaiming Canada conference. Again, I'm going to share this out there. Get your tickets. It's only not even a week away, or it's just over a week away. And looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to meeting all these different speakers that are at the event. And there's going to be access, VIP, all kinds of stuff. Go check it out. Tickets are in the link in the description down below. Anyway, leave a comment in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think, and we'll see you in the next one. Keep on trucking.